So when I was growing up, I didn't have a sense of deep community belonging with either of my religious communities. Honestly, I think that I had a bigger connection with being a New Yorker than my identity as either Presbyterian or Jewish. I loved the church and synagogue that I went to, but I had no connection to the global faiths. And in true New York fashion, a bit of an assumption that, of course, Presbyterianism was just like Greenwich Village, Manhattan Presbyterianism. It's not. In Manhattan, having two faiths made perfect sense. Multi-faith families were everywhere. But when I left the city, I started to feel like a mythical creature. In seminary, my dual identity only became clearer, and yet it was equally clear that there was no one real place for me to belong. Until I found Unitarian Universalism, that is. It's hard to believe that with a religion and history double major in college and an extensive background in interfaith engagement, that it took until mid-seminary for me to actually discover our faith and see it as the perfect home for me. But this is a story that is all too common. I could have told you all about the theologies of Universalism and Unitarianism from the 18th century. This is history that we learn in the study of American Christianity. But that's just it. In name, it's still known for its Christian roots. It took a UU friend of mine bringing me to her church for me to understand that we don't come together around creed or theology anymore. We're no longer a response to Trinitarianism or damnation. We carry our history, but we're also bigger than it. Instead, we come together around shared curiosity to know ourselves, the world, and each other better. Shared hope in a more loving and equitable world. And shared commitment to make it happen. What we have is so much more powerful than I could have even imagined. Because we don't share a dogma. Instead, we share our lives. Our personhood, our community, and our broader faith are journeys we take together. We share the mundane and the transcendent. The moments that were so clear, so spiritual, that they almost felt scripted. Like the time during my internship when a bitter church fight with very intentional healing processes led to a worship service in unity amid disagreement that I led. And during the musical response, as the piano played "We Would Be One," following my sermon, the entire congregation spontaneously burst into song while weeping and holding each other. And we share the moments that are messy, like a 2 a.m. fever, and how to navigate church hygiene and safety. What I love about Unitarian Universalism is that we can share in all of it, because the mundane and the messy are just as sacred as the spiritual and the transcendent. It's all a part of our common humanity. That's what we're about. And it took me a few years to get that. Because when I became UU, I was just so grateful that I could be who I was, free in my search, and still be in community. That it was easy to forget why that mattered so much. Our inherent worth and dignity. Compassion and how we relate. The fight for a just world. that the whole messy, diverse, wonderful human journey is sacred. And so is every single messy, diverse, wonderful human. That became clear as day to me when I attended my first Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm curious, how many people here have ever been to GA? A good number. So would anybody like to just sort of say, what was that like for you? Carol.
I was absolutely amazed at the General Assembly how everybody worked out issues, and they were issues, and they worked them out in a very caring way. I just blew me away.
Yeah.
I've never seen a group work like that.
Anyone else like to say anything about what it was like for them? Absolutely. She said extended family. Yeah, so Laura said that it felt empowering, and I could not agree more. It really is empowering. Overwhelming too. It's both. Depends on if you're an introvert or an extrovert, I imagine. But for me, before I went to GA, my faith was the size of a single congregation, as it is for so many of us. But as I walked into the opening worship and the procession, it looked like the Olympics. Hundreds of banners with proud people marching behind, and thousands of Unitarian Universalists from all over the world in one room. The worship was creative and inspiring. And when we sang, about 30% of the room raised their hands and swayed like a Christian rock concert. And I'll be honest, as a semi-closeted person about my Christian leanings at the time, for the past year, it felt really good to jump in heart first. Don't worry, nobody yelled, "Praise Jesus, we are you." But the spirit of love was there. It was incredible. And during the daytime, we honored our intellect. The democratic process in the mornings, where delegates voted, and, if I'm being honest, wordsmithed well beyond necessary. Something we use are very familiar with. And a buffet of workshops and classes in the afternoon. And then there's the exhibition hall, which has a booth for every possible subset of Unitarian Universalist you could imagine. I could go on and on, giving you every little detail about my GA experiences like a schoolgirl describing her prom. But I'll spare you. What I will say is that I went to my first General Assembly knowing not a single soul there, terrified that it would be profoundly isolating. And I left tearfully saying goodbye to people who'd become family, just like you said. And realizing that I wasn't just you for me, I was you for the whole world. General Assembly clarified that we aren't just a faith. We're a movement that somehow combines freedom, equity, accountability, justice, compassion, hope, love, and an ever-expanding commitment to committees for some reason. But so few know who we are. So few know that really and truly, whoever you are welcome here. And we will fight for you to be welcome in this world, even if Unitarian Universalism is not where you find home. Why isn't that common knowledge? Why aren't we a haven for all seekers to better the world together? To be louder than bigotry and ignorance? Well, sometimes our spiritual diversity has its drawbacks, because it's not easy to communicate who we are, since we are over 100,000 belief systems in one tradition. And I think I came back from General Assembly so inspired because it clarified for me what we're about. And when we distill all of the complicated theologies we carry and our emphasis on freedom, interconnectedness, and love, we are a movement of radical curiosity and radical hospitality. And that means that this space will be welcome for all who can join in that endeavor. For those who choose judgment, exclusivity, or exclusion of those who don't look like them or think like them, it's not that we remove our welcome. They have chosen to step away from radical hospitality and curiosity, and away from Unitarian Universalism. Because hospitality necessarily centers those who are least likely to be welcomed into communities with the power to change the world. People who are often on the margins. And when those in our UU midst refuse to be welcoming of people of color, the LGBTQIA community, immigrants, the differently abled, survivors of trauma, or those who live paycheck to paycheck, we will never stop loving them. And we will continue to seek restoration because we believe in their worth. Part of loving each other is holding each other accountable when we cause hurt. When I was a counselor at an interfaith camp for youth from regions of conflict, I watched the extraordinary process between two teenagers, one Israeli and one Palestinian. The youth from Israel had a brother in the IDF. The youth from Palestine had family members who had been falsely accused of terrorism and hurt by the IDF. And through tears, curiosity, and ultimately a profound sense of wanting to be people of welcome, they became best friends. When one of them made a remark that hurt the other person, they had already learned to respond to impact rather than intent, so their friendship could move through it. This is how the interfaith movement is designed. It is grounded in curiosity and welcome for all to know each other better and love each other better. We happen to have a leg up because that is how Unitarian Universalism is designed too. We are a microcosm of interfaith communities and even the world. And because of that, we are perfectly situated to transform the world around us with our hospitality. But it's harder to do unless we expose ourselves to the entirety of Unitarian Universalism. I know that GA is expensive. So even if you can only register remotely to be a part of worship and classes online, it's worth it. General Assembly is a family of Unitarian Universalists that will inspire you to seek the family of humanity. It taught me that we are most powerful when we come together to bring our message of love, justice, and curiosity to the wider world. We can harness that connection. We are a teaching faith. We are a learning faith, and we are a loving faith. And all of that together can bring transformation, whether it's to how we engage the coronavirus or the virus of racism. We have the power to bring calm, curiosity, and hope for change. Because we do it with each other every day. So, my friends, let's come together to live out our radical message of curiosity and hospitality. Teach each other well about your dreams and hear the dreams of others. And above all, know that we love you. Blessed be, and amen.